Hey there, it's the real Jason Duncan. I've got a special announcement for you really quick. I am hosting the Exit Lifestyle Conference in Nashville, Tennessee, February 3rd, 4th, and 5th, 2022. You don't want to miss it. Go to theexitlifestyle.com to learn more.
You know, I see young people now, young people who work in hospitality, young people who are doing different things. Like there's loads of different ways to learn the skills to run a business. You know, you don't have to be born and just grow up in an entrepreneurial family. Like I think one of the most amazing people who are entrepreneurial are farmers, actually, because I mean that's a very tough job, 24/7, you know, work ethic. I even think, and I have amazing young people who work for me, but you know, the way young people work today would be very different to the way people had to work 50 years ago. You know, and it is hard work running a business. So even, you know, as a teenager getting a job, the skills you have to, you know, dealing with the public, working as part of a team. So there's lots of different ways that you can learn. You know, you don't learn this stuff all overnight. There's lots of different parts to it. So, you know, that's all I would say to, you know, people who are starting out or certainly younger people who might listen to your podcast as well.
In today's ultra-competitive business world, being a successful entrepreneur or business owner can be very challenging. Fortunately, contemporary times have blessed us with resources for tackling those challenges and getting us to success more quickly than we could have imagined. Welcome to The Root of All Success with the real Jason Duncan, a podcast that explores how the world's most powerful entrepreneurs grow incredible companies. This podcast looks at the 5 keys to unlocking success as an entrepreneur. A successful educator turned entrepreneur, Jason's mission is to use his gifts of teaching and leadership to help others get the results they want out of life. Join Jason every week and learn the keys to grow a truly successful business.
Well, welcome back to The Root of All Success. I'm the real Jason Duncan, and I've got a treat for you today. We're going to be talking with Cara Macklin, all the way from Belfast, Ireland. And we got introduced through a network that both of us belong to. And it's going to be a fascinating conversation. She's going to tell her story about how she grew up in an entrepreneurial family where her parents were running very successful companies. And to her, it was absolutely normal to sit around the dinner table and talk about entrepreneurship and business ownership and marketing and sales and profitability. And she just grew up in that environment, which led her at age 15 to start her first company with her brother and go through what that looked like starting a company. And there's a great story about how she and her brother had competition from 2 good-looking girls who tried to steal all their business. And there's going to be a great story about that. So you want to listen to that, stay tuned to that, listen to that story. But then she went to university, spent her years in university, went back to work with the family business. And at 24 years old, was put in charge of a huge division of people and grew it to over 600 employees. And so she learned entrepreneurialism from a young age, experienced it after university, after college, and then went on after 15 years of spending time in the family business, going out and absolutely starting a phenomenal coaching business called Caram, Caram, kind of like her name, Cara Macklin. And she's going to talk a little bit about what that business does and how she helps growth stage entrepreneurial companies. She doesn't work with startups, but growth stage entrepreneurial companies absolutely grow their business in strategic and innovative ways that help them make more impact. Before we get into the show, before I introduce her and let her come on and start talking about, I want to remind you that if you are interested in subscribing to this show, if you just stumbled upon it, please go subscribe. We're syndicated on C-Suite Radio Network, as you heard at the very beginning of the show. We're syndicated there. We're on every podcast player. I would really appreciate it if you would hit the subscribe button and leave a 5-star review, because those reviews help this show get in front of more people listen to it, and then we get to make an impact around the world, which is what I want to do with the show. I want to show people just like you how to unlock your success as an entrepreneur. So please go subscribe on whatever podcast player. And if you don't watch this on YouTube or C-Suite TV, you really should go look that up. Go to youtube.com/TheRealJasonDuncan. And you can see not only the show, but all my video content that I publish on a regular basis. but you can go watch the show. So you can actually see my guest. You can see us talking. I'm actually recording this from my home studio here in Gallatin, Tennessee, just north of Nashville today. And I'm so glad that you're here. Thank you for being here. Without any further ado, let me introduce and welcome Cara Macklin. Well, Cara, it is so good to have you on the show all the way from Belfast, Ireland. So thankful that you're here today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Jason. It's great to see you again.
It's good to see you too. And I know that my listeners are going to really love your accent. I was actually telling my wife before I got on the started the show this morning. I said, hey, I'm interviewing a lady from Ireland today. You just want to sit in there and listen to her accent.
I hope they listen to the words we say as well as the accent, but I'm delighted the accent helps.
Yes. Well, I think it's the same thing too. I often talk to people from other countries and they are, as I think, enamored with my Southern American accent as much as we are enamored with English or Irish or Australian or whatever it happens to be, the different accents. But accents aside, I think somehow you and I got introduced to one another across the ocean. And I was intrigued by your story and thought, well, you would be an interesting person to talk to about your journey to success as an entrepreneur. So today, that's what we're going to talk about. Now, let's do this. I want to start with asking you how you got your entrepreneurial beginning, because every entrepreneur has a start. Some people don't start till much later in life. Some people start very early in life. So when did you, Cara, start as an entrepreneur?
Yes, so I grew up in a family business, two parents my mother was a teacher actually, and my father was a joiner, and they started businesses in the 70s in Northern Ireland during the Troubles. So that was an interesting time to start any business. And I suppose I always thought that every house was just like ours, that you talked about business around the table. And so I never knew anything else. And I remember at school at 8 years old being asked, what did I want to do when I grew up? And I said, oh, well, I want to own Tammy Girl. And that was a teenage fashion store in the UK at the time. And that really wasn't what most country Northern Irish girls were saying, 30 years ago. And then I went on, I had my first business at 15. So I suppose you could say it's in the blood.
Wow. So at 8 years old, you're sitting around the table, you're used to your parents talking about entrepreneurial things, owning businesses. What do you want to do when you grow up? You wanted to own a store. And then at 15, you start your entrepreneurial journey with your first business. What was that first business at 15?
So my brother and I, we grew up in the countryside in Northern Ireland. So at that age, the only way to get out socializing, we don't learn to drive until we're 17 here. So you need to get out. So we decided to start a business of doing buses to local nightclubs. So we used to, so the bus cost us, I think it was £100 for the bus. There was 52 seats on the bus. So him and I had needed a seat, obviously. So the other 50 seats we charged £5 each for. So we were making £150 profit, again, 25 years ago. And hopefully there's no tax people listening to this, but you can appreciate we weren't paying tax either at that age. So that was quite a nice amount of pocket money every few weeks.
That's interesting. So how is your brother, older or younger?
He's just 1 year older than me. And actually our first lesson happened then, because about 6 months into doing that business, we had competitors. So two very good looking girls in my year in school decided to do the same. My brother was the year older than me in school. So all the guys from our bus went onto their bus because they're good looking girls. And we'd already paid the deposit for our bus. So we were thinking, okay, we need to get, how do we get them back? So we contacted the nightclub and they gave us free drinks vouchers and free discount to get everyone in. So then we had £5 bus worth £10. So we had a poster made £10 and scored it out and wrote £5 on it. So then we got everybody back onto our bus, and the competitors then had to stop what they were doing. And one of them actually is a best friend of mine now. So we joke about it that I put her out of business at 15.
So as they say, sex sells. And so you had these pretty girls that were trying to hone in on your business, but your savvy entrepreneurial skills won the day, because money sells too. So if you can save some money, provide a good or equivalent service, at a lesser price. It doesn't matter how pretty the people are providing it. You're probably going to have a good shot at winning that business back. And you did, and you put them out of business. So you're friends with one of those girls today?
Yeah, she's one of my best friends now. I'm her son's godmother, so it didn't impact our friendship, but we do joke about it.
Does she actually, should she pursue entrepreneurialism too, or was that it for her?
She didn't know. She's an accountant. So again, she jokes about that she's not sure the world of entrepreneurship was for her anyway. She's too safe maybe in how she does things. So
so that's funny. So you not only, you started a business, had competition that you thought was going to be a tremendous threat, it made you pivot a little bit, change things. And not only did you put them out of business, you put her out of entrepreneurial business. So that's great. What's her name?
Linda.
So Linda is an important part of your journey as someone who inspired you to do things a little different. And it's cool that you're her son's godmother and that you're still friends to this day. So that doesn't often happen in entrepreneurial competition. Well, after the bus tours, or not the tours, but the transportation to the nightclubs, what did you do next? What was your next big entrepreneurial journey?
So I did the usual, went to university or college, as you would say, did business studies. At that time, then I went to work in London for a year. So I worked in the food trend studio in Marks and Spencer's. That's a big retailer in the UK. And that's when I really learned, a lot more sophisticated version of, what you would call innovation and disruption. So I was at the start of the process of trends and really getting to see how a big retailer did it. So that was a phenomenal experience for me, at a very young age. And also, my parents were very good at, a very high quality and exceptional customer service. And that again was reinforced when I worked in Marks and Spencer. So for me, that's one of the most important things in any business is the quality of what you do. And even, people talk about global businesses and you keep, have different customers all the time, but, the world is getting smaller and smaller. So, that's one thing I would say is never cut corners. And then after that, I came back into the family business as a director. So my first role then at 24, I was managing a care home of 120 staff, again, which I thought was quite normal. But I've now learned as I am on podcasts and talk to other business leaders across the world, they say to me, no, that's not really normal, Cara, at that age. But I suppose it was normal to me.
And what was your family business? What was it that mom and dad were doing when you got involved at age 24 to manage a department or group of people? What was their business?
So they have a number of different businesses. They have elderly care homes, a number of them. They have a 4-star hotel and 5-star apartments with that. And then we have property. I have my own property business as well. But there's, quite a bit of property attached to the businesses as well.
So they have been doing, is that what they were doing all the way back from when you were a child, 8 years old, sitting around the dinner table? They've been doing those same businesses this whole time?
Yes, they started with care homes and then they seen a gap in the market when, coming near the end of the Troubles in Northern Ireland for, hotels to evolve. And obviously then we had a lot of tourists came here. So then they created a very different model in hospitality and tourism in Belfast and then apartments and evolved that industry as well. So both sides of the business I grew up in.
So how long did you work in the business with your mom and dad? You came back after university to work with them. How long were you actually working with them in their business, or are you still working with them in their business?
No, I left the business a number of years ago. So I was about 15 years. I took a few years out to do different things, but about 15 years in that business.
And so now you are operating a business called Caram, and which is completely different. So tell me a little bit about what you're doing now.
Yeah, so one of the things, I obviously hospitality is a very, fast-paced industry. So I was used to that kind of environment my whole life. And I suppose very early on, I got a lot of, University of Life stuff in terms of business and cash flow and how you grow a business. When I was in that business, we would have grown it from 200 employees to over 700. And we had 8 businesses, huge turnover. So, going through the growing pains of growing any business, and very people focused, which, I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs now, and that's still the biggest challenge in any business, is the people side. So doing that, I just had this feeling that, entrepreneurs of the future are going to have to lead very differently. The whole environment is very different. I use the analogy of Henry Ford. Entrepreneurs maybe in their 50s and 60s, the way they succeeded was they got a good model, they kept doing the same thing over and over again, and the key was consistency. That's not going to work anymore. So actually the type of entrepreneur now, and that's where the whole piece around, innovation and training entrepreneurs both in their mindset and their skill set, they're never going to know all the answers. I have a huge drive in anything I do to have a massive impact on the people I work with, and ultimately on the world, to be honest, and whether it's local communities or. So one of the things I did in the business was created a new concept, which we'll probably talk about. But I just felt that I had the skill set from an entrepreneur, and then I trained as a coach professionally from a mindset point of view, that I could help entrepreneurs who really, really wanted to have an impact. And if I could, the more of them I could help, the more impact I could have in the world. So I suppose that was the big driver, rather than me just doing it on my own.
So you created something, I think you refer to it as the innovative scaling system. Could you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so again, it's just gone back to, everything that I do in it is what I have done myself in terms of our own business. It's, sometimes people refer to me as a coach or a mentor or a consultant, and entrepreneurs don't like those terms, and I probably don't either. I'm an entrepreneur through and through. I see a lot of entrepreneurs who they want someone who has been there and done it. They don't want it taught out of a book, or, it's not a corporate world. So, that was the important bit for me, and bringing in just what I felt, future leaders are going to need, which I think is very different. And I say to people, I certainly didn't predict COVID happening at all, but I kind of got this sense 4 or 5 years ago, things were just, well, we could see it anyway with technology. Things are just going to speed up more and more and more. And the people who are running these businesses need a very different skill set to what even they needed 5 years ago, 10 years ago. So that's why I set the business up.
So when you started your own entrepreneurial journey, so you had been working, of course, you started at 15 doing the buses, and then you went to university and you came back and worked in the family businesses that had been part of your just natural growth growing up as a girl. Now you're doing your own thing as an entrepreneur, as a coach, showing people, hey, this is what I did and my family did to scale businesses, to push through hard times and adapt well. What has been the biggest challenge for you in this latest venture of Caram, Caram, right? That's kind of a play on your name,
yes, yeah.
Cara Macklin. So what has been the biggest challenge for you in actually getting that business up and running and scaling on its own, like the way that you're trying to teach other people to do? What's been the biggest challenge for you?
Yeah, so I would say, my expertise is not in startups. So I don't work with startups for that reason, to be honest. I certainly can give them a bit of advice, but the hardest thing for me is I have a massive imagination. And, a mentor once said to me, Cara, you don't want to learn to play golf. You want to play golf in 3 months, play against Rory McIlroy, who I don't know whether you know him, is one of the best golfers in the world, and you want to beat him first time round. And I said, yes, that's pretty much how I take on anything. So starting from scratch, my biggest mistake, actually, and I was talking about this morning, was I didn't set the first small goal. I had a goal of, yep, I'm going to work with these type of entrepreneurs. We're going to change the world. We're going to do X, Y, and Z. And actually, the most important thing when you start anything, it's like starting a car and pushing it up a hill, is just get started and get a bit of momentum. So I needed to, as well as, I'm massive. One of my strap line is imagine more, and I'm always saying that to entrepreneurs, but actually that's what we're very good at. But in reality, we just need to put our feet on the ground and think, okay, what are we going to do in the next 3 months, 6 months?
When did you realize that you had made that mistake of not setting that small goal first, that your goals were too large and you hadn't set the small ones? When did you realize that?
I would say probably about 3 to 4 months into the business.
And what was the tell? How did that become aware to you? Was it a coach? Was it somebody who said to you, hey, you didn't set the small goal first, or was there an issue that made you realize it?
I suppose, well, I'm extremely impatient with achieving things. So I thought to myself, like, this is so far out, and how do I know I'm getting there? It's like running a marathon. So I thought, actually, you need to, come back a step. I say to everyone, people massively underestimate what they can achieve in the long term, but I certainly do, and entrepreneurs are the worst. We massively overestimate what we can do in the short term, and I did as well. So, when you have a few months of not hitting things, the reality kicks in and you think, okay, I need to scale this back a bit initially, and just get momentum. And once I get a few goals and targets hit, then this will speed up a lot quicker.
I think that if you don't mind, I would like to dig into that a little bit, because the show, The Root of All Success, here doesn't normally get into the weeds on tactics, but I think your story and the fact that you have been very successful as a coach working with large scale entrepreneurs to scale larger businesses, not necessarily startup side. I would like to dive into that a little bit if we may, because I would like to know, I think the listeners will be able to see in your story some similarities in their story. So what was the big goal that you set originally? And then you realize, okay, this is maybe not too big, but there's no steps in between where I am now and where that is. What was that goal versus what was the new goal that you said, okay, I got to hit this one first? Can you share both sides of that and what that looked like?
Yeah. So my dream is to get 10 of the best entrepreneurs in the world together in a mastermind group. And the type of entrepreneurs I'm talking about, they'll be from 10 different industries, because that's where you get new and fresh ideas from. Each one of them will bring a different expertise to the table of that. So one will be phenomenal in leadership, one will be phenomenal in marketing. So again, that'll bring a dynamic, but what'll be central to all of them is this drive for more. They'll be similar size, they'll have similar values, and they'll want to have a massive impact on the world, more than just financial, but that is an impact on the world in terms of jobs. So that was what I had in my mind. So I thought, okay, my background's healthcare, hospitality, property, but I don't want to stick in that niche. I had an idea of the different industries, so I went out to try and just get those people together. Now that was too far of a jump for me, because people can't understand. So I don't feel it's far of a jump for me, but trying to market that and trying to get those people together, and they couldn't really understand what I was trying to do. And I should have learned that actually from disrupting the healthcare industry. And it was one of the things I learned there. The hardest part is, I've got something in my mind that's very clear. It's not clear to other people, and it takes a long time to try and help them understand what I'm trying to achieve. So actually what I needed to do then was think, okay, I need to start with the industries that I work in, because that's going to be the easiest first step.
So your big goal, if I can kind of clarify, your big goal was, I want to start this mastermind. I want 10 of the most powerful entrepreneurs I can find in 10 separate and distinct industries, so that we can make each other better and impact the world. That was the big goal. I like it. I like that a lot, by the way. And I think that people listening would go, yeah, that's cool. But you didn't have enough traction. People didn't know who you were, didn't understand your vision, didn't know what it was. So you had to not scale the goal back. The vision still remained the same, but your strategy to achieve it changed to, okay, I'm just going to work in the industries that I know and just get these people together. So did you actually start a mastermind with people in that industry, or did you do something different to start?
So I've started, so the hardest part for me was the actual marketing online, because obviously COVID hit and we couldn't meet people. So when you meet people, it's a lot easier to convince them. So I had no expertise in global marketing on online. So we had to try and figure out how to do that. And again, trying to talk to someone in America who's in manufacturing, and I'm sitting in Belfast and my background's hospitality, and they're thinking, well, why is this person contacting me? So we rolled back and thought, okay, let's just target the type of people we want in healthcare first. Then let's work with a few of them, and we'll start to see, I'll start to open the network into different locations. And but actually, in terms of clients, like I'm working with education, I'm working with an energy client, a manufacturing client. So some of them are more local though. So it was, trying to do global and a different industry over social media in a global pandemic as a startup business was probably not going to be an easy one to get over.
So COVID, like everybody else, you had to struggle through and adapt to what COVID was presenting, but you were successful and you continued to push through. Did you actually start a mastermind as you had intended, but you did it with different groups of people, or did you do more one-on-one private coaching? Which of those did you end up doing to begin with?
So at the minute, I'm doing more one-on-one work. I'm doing a big project with a client who's doing a complete innovation and transformation project. So again, that's a huge challenge for me. I get very frustrated because it's me at the minute. I mean, I have a team, but I'm delivering, a lot of the work. So when you have a company of 600 or 700 people, it's very different, that you can do lots of different things. So the mindset piece is very challenging when you want to do a lot of different things. But then, it's back to that, okay, well, baby steps here. The reality is there's only so many of you here, and you can't do all of this in one go. So you're going to have to pace this out. And entrepreneurs, we do not like slowing down or pacing things out, in my experience.
I would agree. And I think all the listeners who have been an entrepreneur for any amount of time would also know that that's true. The coaching business that I had been coaching for years before I formalized a business. I'd owned my own companies and was coaching kind of on the side. But when I formalized it, I had in my mind how fast I wanted to go and what I wanted to achieve. And you're right, it takes a lot longer than you anticipate, especially starting a high quality coaching and consulting business like what you've done. So one of the words that you talk about a lot is innovation. You've used that word a bunch. We've talked about your innovative scaling system. What does the word innovation mean to you? And then why is it so important for entrepreneurs?
Yes, I mean, in one hand, actually, I use it a lot, and in another hand, I hate the word because it's very overused. And I think a lot of people think, when you think of innovation, they think of Steve Jobs and, creating the iPhone. And certainly he was extremely innovative. But when I talk to the entrepreneurs about more of having an innovative culture, and what I mean by that is a lot of entrepreneurs are very good at coming up with ideas. What they struggle with, they can't bring that skill into the company. So as the company starts to scale, the ideas are all on them. So every problem that happens, people are going up the way to them to solve it. And there's a system that I've created is, how do you filter that down into the business? People would have said to me, oh, like, I'm sure when you're growing your business, like, you're getting hundreds of emails all the time, your team are coming to you all the time with problems. And that's when I realized that I obviously was doing something right, because that never happened to me. So there's a way that you can create the right environment, the right leadership, the right things. And some of the best ideas in the businesses I've had have come from the people on the ground. But that's very much, built into the whole culture of the organization. It's not a let's go off and have an innovation day and everybody's going to come up with great ideas. It's, and it's not innovation in the sense of creating an iPhone. To me, innovation is about, there is always problems. There's always the next thing. There's always disruption in the market. So you need everybody in the organization to be constantly thinking of, okay, what's next? What are we doing after this? What can we be better at? So that's the system I use, as opposed to this glorified word of innovation, which is probably used too much.
Well, I think that I would agree with you. I think that the thing that distinguishes an entrepreneur from a business owner, because I think they're sometimes the same person, but a lot of times they're different, is that entrepreneurs are innovators and they take risk, where business owners pretty much work inside an established system and don't have to take on as much risk. So for an entrepreneur to be truly successful as such, he or she's got to be innovative. But it's not, I like what you said, it's not just about coming up with a new idea, it's being able to execute it. And then what's next? It's moving to that next thing all the time. It's growth. One of the things, if you don't mind, I want to kind of shift gears just a little bit. One of the things that I talk about on the show a lot are these keys to success. I actually started the show back originally when I came up with the concept. I'd been wanting to write a book for a very long time about the 5 keys to success. And that came out of me just interviewing people like you that were super successful entrepreneurs and say, how did you do it? What did you do? And I found that these 5 things came up all the time. So I originally wanted to sit down and write a book, and I've actually got an ebook called The 5 Keys to Success, but eventually it'll be a published printed book. But in the meantime, I thought, well, I want to have a podcast where I explore these 5 keys with people like you, Cara. So what I'd like to do is kind of talk about what those are and get your responses, because not only do you have I think some insight in how these keys have played out in your life as an entrepreneur and in your parents' lives as entrepreneurs, but also now as a coach, you're working with not startup entrepreneurs, you're working with multi-million-dollar companies that are entrepreneurial. And I would like to see what you think about these 5 keys. Can we do that?
Yes, that's great. Yeah.
All right. So the first key that I talk about and that I've discovered through conversations is the key of passion. And passion unlocks, probably more than anything else, unlocks entrepreneurial success. But it's not the way most people think about it. And I know that listeners to my show are very familiar with me talking about that there are 2 sides of passion. There's the intellectual and the emotional side of passion. But most people only think about the emotional side of passion. They think about it in terms of, I'm doing something I love to do. Like for instance, personally, I love motorcycles. I love cars. I love that stuff. But that's the emotional side. The other side of passion, which is actually what the word means, is the intellectual side of passion, which is making a conscious decision to endure for a cause. So, for example, the Passion of the Christ, which is the phraseology we use to talk about Jesus's last week on earth before he was crucified, we call that the Passion of the Christ. And that was purely the intellectual passion of being willing to endure for something. And I found that entrepreneurs, in order to be successful, have to have that type of passion. Whether or not they're emotionally connected to their business is one thing, and that's contributing, that's a help, but that isn't the key to success. The key, I think, and based on everybody I've talked to, is that they have to be willing to endure for their thing. So, Cara, in your life as an entrepreneur, what have you seen that substantiates my theory that passion is probably one of the most important keys?
Yes, no, I mean, I hadn't never heard of it phrased the way you phrased it, and I love that. I think I heard a saying recently where a very famous investor, and I can't think of his name right now, kind of jokes about, oh, everybody has to have passion when they're an entrepreneur for what they do. And he said, well, that's rubbish. Actually, you need to make profit and money and solve a problem first and foremost. And that really got me thinking, which ties in now to what you're saying.
Yeah.
I think people confuse passion with you have to love it and enjoy it. And I see a lot of entrepreneurs, business owners, they start something on something they love. And that's okay. If you're a motorcycle fan and you want to open a motorcycle shop and that's a lifestyle business and you can make some money at it, fine. If you want to have a global business and there's not people all over the world who are going to buy it, so that passion is very different depending on the type of business you want to open. But yes, definitely the intellectual passion. I agree that and disagree with the passion bit. I don't think you can hate what you do as an entrepreneur. I'm not saying you need to absolutely love it and, like you with the motorcycles, but I don't think you could do something that you really, really hated. So that would be a starting point. But then, yes, there has to be, people talk about, is it a higher purpose? The intellectual passion, there has to be something that keeps pulling you forward and driving you, because, I mean, there are serious, serious knocks, and 95% of the world will tell you not to do it. So that's one hell of a tidal wave, because 95% of the world don't have the courage to do it themselves. So you need to have a very strong insight. And I'm going to steal that, intellectual passion, for sure.
Well, it really boils down to that ability or desire or willingness to endure or even suffer for the thing that you're building. So, for instance, you were starting, building a coaching business, and then an international pandemic slows down the ability to connect with people and meet with people. And had you not been passionate about that as a concept, you wouldn't have endured through that. You might have gone off and done something completely different, but you had the ability and desire to endure, just like I have done. I endured a partner separation that just about bankrupted me and closed the business. I've endured years of not making really very much money just to build the business so that I could get to a place where I could be successful. So I think I think one of the indisputable keys to everyone's success as an entrepreneur is that passion. And I agree with you. You can't be successful in something you hate. It is not likely that you're going to succeed. So if you hate something, but you don't have to absolutely be overjoyed at the fact that you're doing something you love. I would love to, if I could figure out how to make a global impact through owning a motorcycle shop, I would do it. But what's funny that you mentioned that is that just recently, over this past year, I had been pursuing buying a motorcycle dealership, and I really, really wanted to do it. It was more of a lifestyle thing for me. I knew it was going to limit my time because I was going to have to be involved in the shop for a while, at least to get it kind of organized. But at the end of the day, the finances didn't make sense, and it was going to slow me down in building my other businesses that I own. So even though I was emotionally passionate about it, I decided I wasn't willing to endure for it. So there's a good thing. Now, so the second key, Cara, is not only is passion, but the second key is being at the right place at the right time. And I would say that based on the story that you shared about your journey, I'm going to make some assumptions, and you can correct me, and then you can talk about how it also plays into the lives of the people that you work with, is that being at the right place at the right time is not about luck. It's about putting yourself in the right place at the right time, or observing where you are in the world and what timing you're dealing with, and then making the most of it. So you mentioned the troubles in Northern Ireland in the 70s and how your parents looked at the opportunity. Hey, hospitality, hotels, these things are going to be a big opportunity. And that's why they moved into that arena, which led them to be tremendously successful, which eventually led you to be successful. What do you think about how right place, right time plays into our ability to succeed as entrepreneurs?
I mean, it massively does. I mean, I would say there's two sides to that coin, and every entrepreneur, if they're being completely honest, there is a bit of luck in it. Steve Jobs talks about this in terms when he was alive in Microsoft, and that whole where they grew up, and there was a lot of them near Silicon Valley and the time. And so, be under no illusion, there is luck for everybody, but it's back to the other side of it. You make your own luck, and you look at opportunities, you look at industries, you look at timing, how your people behaving. So for example, for me, in terms of the business I'm now doing, I just believe, my mostly entrepreneurs in their 30s and 40s, I just knew and felt that they would have a different mindset, that they're more open. People in their 60s couldn't have asked for help years ago as the owner and entrepreneur of a business. It just wouldn't have worked. They might have had accountants or advisors in the background who give them financial advice, but in terms of what I do now, that it just wouldn't happen. So you have to tie in with, no matter what idea you have, like you have to go with the wave. The disruption I did in elderly care, again, that was timing. I'd seen it happening in the States. I then seen it happening in the UK. And the wave was, I thought, well, I'm going to be the first to bring the wave here. So, looking across the world, looking at different industries, that's what I say. When, things that happen in other places, you can never directly replicate it in your local town or village, but you can take some things from it and think, okay, well, that's happening there. There's a chance that there's similarities there with us. And that's how things are going to play out here.
Yeah, I think that what you're talking about there, Cara, is a key character trait and personality trait of a successful entrepreneur is being observant. It's paying attention, understanding what's going on, and being prepared. I think if you think back to the Industrial Revolution and the people who were able to capitalize on the Industrial Revolution, is they were right place, right time, but they paid attention and capitalized on it. They didn't walk into and just step into building a factory and all of a sudden, they're very successful. They understood we're moving in a certain way. Technology and industry is working in a certain direction. So just like your parents and like you guys have done, you saw trends in industries that were coming and you took advantage of that. So I think that is a very good explanation of right place, right time. And entrepreneurs who are paying attention to that can use that to unlock their own success. The third key to success is knowing the right people. I find that every entrepreneur I talk to, whether it's on this show or casually over a bourbon or whatever, I talk to them about the fact that you've got somebody or bodies, some bodies or bodies, individual or groups of people that you can point to and say, had it not been for him or her or them, I wouldn't be successful today. So I want to ask you, do you have people like that in your life that you would be willing to talk about? And then can you substantiate that theory in the lives of the entrepreneurs that you assist and go, yeah, had that person not been in their life, they wouldn't have been able to do these things? What do you think?
Oh, I mean, phenomenally. I did an MBA, and you'll probably know a lot of people who do MBAs are generally finance people and, big corporations. And one of the first things I said to them all was business is all about people. And they said, oh, here goes Miss HR, like healthcare, soft, fluffy, which they didn't realize I wasn't. But, it is all about people. And it's, I think people overcomplicate it. It's building relationships. It's getting to know people on a personal level. It's, helping people out when you can. I think social media has glorified it into this mass market. I mean, you can't build a relationship with 15,000 people properly. But without a doubt, I mean, I could tell you dozens and dozens of people, I mean, any of them, I can give you specifics on that there is no way I would have achieved what I've achieved without them, both from either their network or, someone just phoning me and saying, I mean, it was actually a mentor of mine who was in technology, who I met randomly, and he was the one that sowed the seed for the disruption I did in the care market. And that's not his business at all. And he said, oh, well, I just see this and this and this, and I think you could be the right person to kind of disrupt this industry. And then along the way, actually, whenever I had, dozens of people saying it wouldn't work and millions of pounds invested in it, and he would have said to me, look, you're onto the right thing here. You just need to stick at this. So you do need that little voice. You said earlier on about, the passion, and yes, we all have to have the passion, but I don't know about you, but certainly me and the entrepreneurs I work with, there are days that you do want to give up. There are days where you think, my God, I just can't go on. And it's those people that really have the belief in you, and it doesn't take very much, and then up again you go, and on to the next thing.
Yeah, well, I think about your story too, about how influential your parents were in your success, because it was normal for you to know entrepreneurship. My kids are adults now, young adults, but I wasn't an entrepreneur until I didn't start my entrepreneurial journey until they were, I think, 11, 12, somewhere around there. So the first decade of their life, they weren't indoctrinated in entrepreneurship like you were. So they didn't get to see it, because I was a pastor for a while, then I was a school teacher for a while, then I became an accidental entrepreneur. So I think your parents, for you, are very instrumental. Your brother, I think, also, because of you guys doing that thing early on. And then Linda, think about Linda challenging you to have to make a change in your marketing plan. I imagine if Linda hadn't done what she did, if she didn't live there, and you would have just continued to run the bus thing, and you never would have got that lesson about how to work with the nightclubs to get the discounts and to get the tickets. You weren't forced to make those changes. So I guess what I would want to say there to people that are listening is that to remember that it's not just the good people in your life that are keys to your success. It's also negative influences. It's people that challenge you and do bad things. I mean, I can think about, without getting too personal, some people in my life that have been some of the biggest problems in my life, or have caused major issues in my life. But I look back to them and say, I thank God for those people, because had they not been there, I wouldn't have learned those lessons that now make me the super successful entrepreneur that I am today.
Yeah. And one thing I would want to say, yes, certainly. I mean, I grew up in a family business, so you could argue I had a massive head start. But, I see young people now, young people who work in hospitality, young people who are doing different things. Like, there's loads of different ways to learn the skills to run a business. You don't have to be born and just grow up in an entrepreneurial family. Like, I think one of the most amazing people who are entrepreneurial are farmers, actually, because I mean, that's a very tough job, 24/7, work ethic. I even think, and I have amazing young people who work for me, but the way young people work today would be very different to the way people had to work 50 years ago. And it is hard work running a business. So even, as a teenager getting a job, the skills you have to, dealing with the public, working as part of a team. So there's lots of different ways that you can learn. You don't learn this stuff all overnight. There's lots of different parts to it. So, that's all I would say to, people who are starting out, or certainly younger people who might listen to your podcast as well.
Yeah, I agree. There's one of the things that I coach my clients on is that you can get direct mentoring, direct coaching, where you hire a coach and you work directly with them, but you can also get indirect coaching, indirect mentorship through reading books, listening to podcasts, watching videos, joining coaching groups, where you're not having direct access to the coach or the mentor or the advisor, but you're getting indirect. So there's no excuse really. You've got access. Are you going to take advantage of that? The last two keys, I'll group these together. So we've talked about passion. We've talked about being in the right place at the right time. We've talked about knowing the right people. Those are all, I think, the three primary keys to success. And that if you use those keys, you can unlock success as an entrepreneur, as you have done, and as I have done, and countless dozens of others have done that you and I both know. But the last two keys that I discovered as I was interviewing people about how they achieved success are preparation and plan. So the fourth key of preparation is, do you have the know-how to pull it off? And I think in your story, it's illustrated that your preparation began as a toddler, as a child, sitting around the dinner table, talking about entrepreneurship, being involved in hospitality, watching how that was going on, and your preparation and doing the buses when you were a teenager, how that prepared you. You couldn't have been successful as you are today had you not been prepared for it. For example, you couldn't have gone off and started a biotech firm with the preparation you had, because the preparation you had didn't prepare you for that type of success. So that's what I mean by preparation as a key to success. And I would be interested to hear your perspective on that. But before I give you back the time to talk about it, the fifth key is plan. And that is, do you have a plan to pull off what you're going to succeed at? And specifically, money. Like, do you have the financial plan to make this happen? Because it takes financial resources to be successful. So what do you think, Cara, about preparation and plan as keys to your success and keys to other entrepreneurs' success?
Yes, I mean, hugely important. I mean, I think I always say every strength has a dark side. Entrepreneurs' biggest strength is our fearlessness, and we'll take on anything. The next new biggest challenge, we'll take it on. So in some ways, we don't feel we need to be prepared. Once we get into it, we'll figure it out. And I think that is a massive asset we have. That's what disrupts industries. You want someone who doesn't have the expertise in the industry, but there's a leap too far. I had a guy who spoke to me recently and had a lot of money actually, and he wanted to go into buying care homes and running them, or getting other people to run them for him. Now, he had no expertise in finance, no expertise in investment, no experience in nursing homes, nothing. And I'm thinking, my God, no experience in running a business. And all I could see was this guy with lots of money, and it was just like lottery actually, and it was just casino table stuff. So I just asked him a few questions, because I didn't want to say no, because I'm definitely not the person who tells anyone no. I'm the polar opposite. And then after a few things, he said, oh, actually, what I think I should do now is I should go and spend time with this person. I should go and work with this person. I should go and so yes, I mean, it's all about, again, back to my MBA, I was joking with the guys who were investors in my class and stocks and shares, which isn't for me. And I said, oh, that's just like playing roulette. And they said, well, Cara, so was opening a business. And actually they were right. I didn't see it that way because I was certain it would work. And I suppose, as you say, I had, expertise in certain areas. Don't go in blind is all I would say. And certainly don't go in blind with a huge amount of money if you don't know what you're doing on that front.
So talking about the money, what do you think about the plan? Like, how is that a key to success, knowing how you're going to deploy financial resources to be successful? How do you see that as playing into someone's ability to succeed?
Massively. I mean, I suppose I grew up the old-fashioned way, in that you don't spend it until you have it. It was, Northern Ireland's not a big country. And then I start to hear figures and investment in companies, and some guys I know, I say, and what's the plan for this money to be paid back? And they say to me, will you come and sit on our board? Because it's just like the next A round, B round, this series of funding. That's not how I'm built. So I'm not saying you do have to invest in a business and spend more, but I just think, we have to be very, very careful. A business is set up, to make an impact, but ultimately to make profit, in my view. So, cash flow is very important at the beginning. massively, we, again, entrepreneurs, we're rose tinted glasses, so we massively overestimate what we think we can achieve. With people I work with, I say, okay, give me a projection and then cut it in half and increase your costs, because things will go wrong. And if you still have a buffer, well, you're probably okay then. So
Yeah,
that's just good old fashioned stuff. I'm not sure everybody would agree with me on that, but that's how I do it.
well, cash flow, you mentioned that a couple of times in our conversation today, Cara, that cash flow is so very important, and cash flow is king. If you want to be successful, you've got to figure out cash flow, and cash flow is the difference between what comes in and what goes out. And, that what you get to keep in between is cash flow. And there are going to be times in many businesses' lives where early on, the cash flow is negative. You got more money going out than it's coming in, and that's just part of the growth process. But if that can't be flipped in short order, your plan has to be, you've got to come up with a different plan, because you can't succeed without cash flow. I think that we hear stories about wildly successful, huge Fortune 5 companies that are break even or losing money. Well, we all know that they could show a loss but still have cash flow. and I don't think the average person understands that it's not about the bottom line of the profit and loss as much as it is about cash flow. Are we able to have money in between to pay for the things that we need? So to review these 5 keys of passion and be at the right place at the right time, and knowing the right people, being prepared, and having a good plan. I think that your experience individually as a human entrepreneur, you've experienced those 5 keys and used those keys to unlock success. And I think you've illustrated that other people who are listening to the show can, if they use those keys, they can unlock success for themselves. They've got to tap into what they're willing to endure for. Are they paying attention to the time that they're, what's going on around them and the time and place that they are? Are they putting themselves in place to be successful? Are they rubbing elbows with people like you to help get them to a greater level of success? And what do they know? What are they prepared to be successful at? And then what's their plan to deploy resources? So if you were talking to a person today, and I'm going to give you the chance to talk directly to this person. So if you were talking to a person who's listening to the show, Cara, that they've not started yet. And I know you admitted early on that startups kind of not your thing. You're more on the large scale business, growth stage companies. But if you were talking to that startup person and you wanted to give them advice based on your experience as a coach and as an entrepreneur, what would you say to him or her?
Well, I'd probably, first find out a bit about what their business is. I would ask them, have they tested it, and is there a problem, and are people willing to pay for it? And then I would, challenge their endurance and that intellectual passion, as you said, because if you have those 2 things, you're going to go very far.
And I think you also could probably give them a piece of advice, going back to our conversation earlier about your goal setting, just like what you did.
Yeah.
You made that mistake of setting a really great goal, which was a really big goal, which is fine. But you can't climb a ladder with 3-foot rungs. You've got to make sure that they're close enough that you can step on the first one before you get to the second to third. Yes. And I think that was great advice early on in our conversation about you experience setting the goal too high and had to scale it back so that you could actually succeed in it. So, Cara, this has been a fantastic conversation. I want to give you a minute or so to kind of explain to the listeners how they could get in touch with you, because I think you're a very fascinating lady. You've been very successful at many different things, and there may be some people that want to get in touch. So how would they get in touch with you?
Well, there's a couple of different ways. So first, you can find me on LinkedIn. So as you've said, it's Cara Macklin. My website is Caram, caram.org.uk. And one of the things I do actually with my team every month is we offer a complimentary growth call from our podcast. So people apply for it, and we choose the person that we feel we can help the most. So that's on my website. So if you go to caram.org.uk/leadership-growth-call/book, but I'll send you the link so you can put it in the podcast. So that is, some people, I don't do sales calls with people. My business comes from people who know me and whatnot, and that is genuinely a call to help someone who, is at a point where they want to, grow to the next level, and there's something in the business or something in their own leadership or their own mindset that's holding them back at the minute, and I'll help them and hopefully get them to the next level.
So that's Cara Macklin, C-A-R-A. Let me say that again. I got a little feedback, so editors can edit that part out. So that's Cara Macklin, C-A-R-A-M-A-C-K-L-I-N-E. Right? I spelled that correctly.
No E on it.
No E. So let me say all that again. So I don't want to do that. Somehow an E ended up on my board there. So editors, forgive me. We'll edit that out. So you can contact Cara Macklin. That's C-A-R-A-M-A-C-K-L-I-N. You can find her on LinkedIn, or you can go to her website, caram.org.uk, and that's C-A-R-A-M, as in Macklin.org.uk. And she talked about that leadership call that you can get in on, and we're going to post that in the show notes so you can get access to that so that you can get there. So Cara, thank you for being on the show today. It's been an honor to talk to you. I appreciate you dialing in. It's an afternoon where you are. It's morning where I am. I love technology. And you said early on in our show that the world's getting smaller and we're in a global economy. And that's what the cool thing about the world getting smaller is I can have amazing conversations with the people in other countries like you. So thank you for doing this today. I appreciate it very, very much.
Thank you so much for having me. Honestly, it's been such a pleasure.
Well, there you have it. Another successful entrepreneur telling her story of how she achieved success using these 5 keys that I talk about almost every show: of passion, being at the right place at the right time, knowing the right people, being prepared, and having a good plan. And she has a lot of experience in the entrepreneurial world, watching her parents do what they did. She and her brother starting a business, she going to work for the family business, and then she absolutely starting an amazing company on her own that helps other entrepreneurs achieve success. And she talked about that. And one of the things that we talked about today is that ability and willingness, that intellectual passion, willingness to endure. And she said something really important that I want to make sure you take home with you today, is that you're not going to be successful if you hate it. So if you're working in a business that you hate or an industry that you hate, you've got to figure something out. You can't be successful in that. So while you don't have to be overjoyed at the thing that you're doing, you certainly can't be successful if you hate it. I want to thank Cara for coming on to the show. It's been a pleasure to talk with her, especially. And I know that, listening to an Irish accent, I don't get to do that every day. It was fantastic to listen to her Irish accent. And I know her listeners are probably saying, who's that guy? It sounds like a country bumpkin from America. But I appreciate you listening. I want to make an offer to you. One of the things that she and I talked about in the show is we talked about getting direct and indirect coaching. Direct coaching, of course, is you go out and hire a business coach like Cara. You can go to caram.org.uk and sign up to get on one of her leadership calls and see how she might be able to help you if you're a growth stage entrepreneur. But there's also indirect coaching, where you join coaching groups or you get access to online video content or podcasts like this. And I want to invite you to become a member of the Successful Entrepreneur online learning community. For only $55 a month, you get access to indirect coaching from me on a regular basis. And what's interesting about the indirect coaching that I provide through the Successful Entrepreneur online learning community, or TSC, as I call it, what you get through TSC is that I do a almost weekly 1-hour coaching call live on Zoom that once you're a member, you get access to register and be a part of those live Zooms, where I do one I call Ask Jason Live, where I do a Q&A for an hour, and you can log in and absolutely ask any question you want to ask. I do another one called the Success Lecture Series, where a couple of times a month, I get on camera on Zoom, you get to log in, and I will do a deep dive into a concept to coach you through how to do it. Just recently, I did a whole success lecture on how to manage your time like a millionaire. I'm going to do another one very soon coming up, how to double your revenue without spending any money. These are great concepts that you get directly from me as a business coach, but you get that through part of being TSC member for only $55 a month. But not only do you get that, you also get something I do called the Entrepreneur Master Series. The Entrepreneur Master Series I do once a month. It's a 90-minute Zoom webinar where I bring in an outside expert who can share with you his or her expertise on their particular thing. So we do them on taxes, we do them on sales, we do them on wealth acquisition and growth, we do them business acquisition. We're going to do one coming out very soon. Probably by the time that this particular episode airs, we will have already done it. It will be in the past, but it's on how to avoid wasting money on a business coach. These are all things that we do to help deliver tremendous value to you as a member of our community, the TSE community. And it's only $55 a month. You also get access to select live events around the country that I host all around the United States. You get access to discounted tickets to things like TEDx and the conferences that I will be speaking at. And then you also get 20% off my online courses and 10% off any group coaching that you want to sign up for. So the TSE for $55 a month is one of the best investments you can make in your life as an entrepreneur. If you want to join, go to therealjasonduncan.com/TSE. That's therealjasonduncan.com/TSE. I hope that you'll join, and I hope to see you on the next Zoom webinar. Well, I'm the real Jason Duncan. This has been the Root of All Success. I'll see you again next time when I talk with yet another amazingly successful entrepreneur about his or her journey to success. Until then, remember this: Jesus is king.
Thank you for listening to another edition of The Root of All Success with the real Jason Duncan. If you've enjoyed this week's episode, we invite you to visit therootofallsuccess.com to access the show notes and other helpful resources. Take charge of your business. Grow it from great to incredible. Join us again next time here on The Root of All Success.